Hey everybody, welcome back to Northernlion. Please abide by AFTERBIRTH. Plus, we suck and we lost last time, but hey, it's a living. Who we got? Not Blue Baby again. Oh my god. I was gonna say Jim Carrey's Groundhog Day. X22G XNJT. That would be a very different movie. First off, pretty sure when Groundhog Day came out, Jim Carrey was probably like 20 years old. Ooh, let's go. Not, you know what? I'm gonna test that theory. I like looking at this stuff. So Groundhog Day release. Groundhog Day release date 1993. He was definitely older than 20. I'm gonna say he was 28. Jim Carrey birthday 1962. My man was 31 years old. He looked good back then. You're telling me that in Dumb and Dumber, Jim Carrey was like 33 years old? That's crazy. He's taking good care of himself, man. By the way, has Wolfram Alpha gotten to that point yet? Could I type into Wolfram Alpha, Groundhog Day release year minus birthday of Jim Carrey? And it would spit out a number in days, and then I would cast it to a new date time. Just a little programming joke for you. Oh, yeah. Don't you mean a new Gregorian calendar object? Get out of here, old Java programmers. Anyway. It turns out it might not have been that different of a movie at all. I mean, Bill Murray, I guess he was in his 50s when Groundhog Day came out. I don't know why I thought that movie came out in like the mid-1980s instead of the early 1990s. I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but, you know, it's kind of like stuff that came out before I was born. Until I got old enough to watch it for myself, it took on a certain special kind of stigma, because I would see the VHS in the movies rental store. I even forgot what they were called temporarily, but I would never be able to watch them. So, you know, there's a bunch of movies that I can recognize the box art for, or the VHS cover, but never got to see when they were released. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, True Lies, Groundhog Day, What About Bob, The Pelican Brief, you know, all those movies came out sometime between, like, you know, 1990 and the year 1876. Same thing, like, there's a very, I wouldn't say it gets dunked on. It's more like remembered with an odd sense of reverence. There's this game on Super Nintendo, and I don't remember what it's called, but the box art is an old man with a banjo and then like a shooting star behind him. And the game itself is actually like a space shmup. You know, like a Galaga or something like that. Hold on. You know, I can probably tell you the name of the game here. SNES cover art banjo. Phalanx! Yeah, that's it, dude. So Phalanx, the hyperspeed shootout in space. Just looking at this box art, published, of course, by the incredible corporation Kemco, which I'm sure we've all got our favorite Kemco titles, but I'm not gonna, you know, belabor the point there. Just an incredible assortment of classics released by the corporation Kemco. Super Plumber Man, that's a big one. Anyway, where am I? The Man of Mega. I have never played Phalanx in my entire life, but just seeing the cover art instantly teleports me back to being like, you know, 7 years old in the game and video rental store. I don't know. What's weird, or what's interesting, I guess, is that, I really thought I could leave and re-enter and kick that back out into the secret room, but you guys might have, it's interesting, I guess. What I'm trying to say is how that kind of nostalgia implants itself in our brains at roughly the same age, but because we're different ages, we feel differently about that. Like, if I was talking to somebody who's like 35, they would be like, yeah, I remember Phalanx. Why are you, you know, ascribing to it some kind of benefit greater than the fact that, you know, it was just like an okay space shooter? I don't know why you're being so weird about it. But the same way, I'm sure there are people like, you know, 3 or 4 years younger than me who are like, when I see the cover art for Spyro the Dragon, it instantly teleports me back to being, you know, 7 years old and sitting in front of my PS1. I mean, I got a certain amount of nostalgia for stuff from that generation, but, you know, it's a little bit different, I guess. The stuff that, like, there's movies that do that too. Like, I can picture in my head the VHS box art for True Lies. I've never seen True Lies. I hear it's good. But I can picture the box art in my head because I would always see it at the VHS rental store. Video store, that's the word we're looking for. What's weird is, you know, if you ever need a primer for how popular movie rentals were, if you're not, you know, from the similar generation that I'm from, I grew up just outside of a town that had literally a population of 1,000. Oh, Dark Bomb, thank you. So, you know, I say my hometown is Kingston, Ontario, and that's kind of true. Like, I spent a lot of time there, but that was like a 20-minute drive from where I really spent my time. I spent my time basically in like a house in the woods, which is why I've become such a sophisticate in my adulthood here. But dang old kombucha man. I don't know where I'm going with that. My hometown that had 1,000 people in it, if 1,000 to be honest, it had one post office, obviously, no doctor's office, no dentist, one gas station, 3 places where you could rent VHS tapes. It's incredible. You know, you could be like, you know, oh, you don't have what I want? I'll go down Main Street 4 blocks and I'll go to the other video store. It was absurd. None of them were chains either. They might be, well, they don't exist anymore. I remember there was like 3 general stores. 2 of the general stores also did VHS rentals. And then one of them was just like a dedicated video rental store. And that one was like, yo, you know you're going all out when you go to the dedicated video rental store. They're going to have everything. They probably got 4 copies of Mel Gibson's Payback. Dude, we're going to get Beelzebub. Like 95% confidence. Video rental stores, by the way, that's one of those things you should not be nostalgic for. If you are, I mean, you can be nostalgic for it as long as you're not like blindly. Things were better back then. Things are so much better now. And I think the same for music as well, unless you're not like if you're a musician, you might be making less money. But from a consumer standpoint, I think it's way better. You know, I've talked a lot about how when I was a kid, CDs were like 20 to 25 bucks each. And you'd normally buy them just to get one song that you heard on the radio that you really like because there's no discoverability. Either that or you would illegally tape a song that you like on the radio. Which, you know, if you've never done that, first off, what's it like to sleep soundly at night with a clean conscience? But secondarily, you know, the kids these days, you'll go to pirate.com and search good music, and there it is. 2 seconds later, I got it on my iPod. Back then, it was like, man, I really hope this radio station plays Faith Hill's This Kiss. That would be a real... And then you gotta time it right with the tape as well, and it's a whole thing. Taking a lot of damage, I wouldn't dispute that. This bone heart is not long for the world, probably, but... Ooh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But video rental stores, dude, it was the intersection of too expensive and also, I don't want to say a bad experience, because it was like the only way you could watch movies that had come out on video at that point, unless you wanted to buy the tape yourself. But to watch a movie was like, or to rent a movie was like 10 bucks. After you rented it, you would have to bring it back. So I'm, you know, as a kid, the standard Saturday night, or Saturday morning, I should say, of errands with my parents was like, okay, first we're going to go to like 2 grocery stores. You know, we're going to go to this one because, you know, they got cheap produce. And then we're going to go to this one because the meat's on sale. And then we're going to go to this one, the bougie grocery store, because it's the only grocery store in our town that sells, you know, fruit we've never seen before, like friggin' mangoes or something. You know, we've come a long way. But then following that, you know, you'd go to the mall and you'd be like, hey, does Winners have any dress shirts on sale? And then following that, you'd be like, hey, Ryan, grab these videotapes, pop them into the jumbo video drop box. Beyond that, the number of times, you know, you'd talk it out in the car, and you'd be like, what do you want to see? Oh, I want to see Air Force One with Harrison Ford. I love airplanes and also America. That movie looks really good. And then you get there, and there's just a wall of Air Force One VHS tapes, and none of them, if you've never been to a chain video rental store, basically it's like a taxi. Yeah, let's do it. Actually pretty nice. There's a signal, you know. I'm always shocked by how many people don't know this. You'd be surprised if you see a taxi and the light on top of, at least in North America, and the light on top of the taxi is illuminated. That means the taxi does not have a fare right now and can be flagged. If the light is not on, save your arm, save your breath, and save your frustration. That taxi's not going to pick you up. There's somebody already inside of it. It was the same at a video store. If your sorry, a little hoarse here. If your VHS tape has another box behind it, then you know you're good. You're going to be witnessing one of Harrison Ford's top 30 best movies this weekend. If you don't see that it has a box behind it, you're out of luck. And then you go up to the front and you'd be like, hey, on the wall, you guys don't have any copies of Harrison Ford's Air Force One. Any chance you got some up here that people have returned, you just haven't rewound yet, and they would check for you. It was a different system. Imagine if you went to Netflix. I mean, there's no reason for this, but just for the thought experiment. Imagine if you went to Netflix and it was like, oh, you know the Fire Festival documentary? Yeah, it's too popular. I know everybody's talking about it. Sorry, it's been watched by so many people that our license has run out. You can't watch it. But it was also kind of cool because it gave you an idea for, like, the popularity of movies. You know, if you went and you saw, like, sometimes a wall and a half would be covered by one movie. And you're like, yo, bro, Jumanji is a hit. But sometimes you'd go and there'd be, like, you know, a wall of movies, but none of them would be booked out. And you'd be like, yo, I'm not sure about this Pluto Nash thing, Eddie Murphy. It's kind of like a vision. It was like a built-in infographic for the popularity of a film. Yo, I mean, we want Cracked Crown more than we want Dark Prince's Crown, which is not actually Dark Prince's Crown. Bloody Crown, I guess. Anyway, there's some vestiges of that era you should, in my opinion, not be nostalgic for. Even still, you might be like, yeah, but like renting video games was cool. You could rent a game for like $10. Or even cheaper, and then, like, just beat it and bring it back to the store. It's cool, for sure, but I don't know. I really feel like we exist in a... I don't want to say we've been spending most of our lives living in a gamer's paradise, but I do kind of think we're in a golden age for that, to be honest. Like, you know, between PS Plus and, you know, the Humble Monthly and, you know, Xbox Game Pass and et cetera, et cetera. They're not the same as renting, and Steam sales as well are a good thing here, but, you know, for the same amount of money, you can basically get a lot of games for free. Not for free, but for the same cost. Like, as much as I laughed about the fact that I bought Xbox Game Pass for Sea of Thieves, and just accidentally forgot that I had it for a year until I did my tax stuff, you know, that was kind of a ripoff, but simultaneously, it forced me to look at the Xbox Game Pass catalog, and I was like, yo, you know, you're getting Sea of Thieves, which your mileage may vary, to be quite frank. We'll be leaving, because we can't hold two with this, right? Yeah, okay. None of those are really worth taking damage to try to finesse either. But, you know, you're getting Forza 4, or Forza 8, whatever it is, which I've heard is fantastic, although I don't know if it can hold a candle to the Grand Tour game by Amazon Prime. You know, I'm not saying it's a perfect world, I guess, that you're just getting every video game for free. But I think that, you know, as compared to rentals, we have the spiritual successors to game rentals, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. I think it's better now. I will always... I fought for digital distribution, and by fought, I mean argued in favor of and have an inflated sense of my own position within the social hierarchy, I guess. You know, I mentioned it in videos and thus willed it into existence. But you know, I've heard people not badmouth, but they got problems with the digital ecosystem. You know, I forget where I was. Oh, you know what? It was at the EDF event where somebody was talking, and they're like, you know, are you guys gonna release this in a boxed copy? Because you know, digital's so frustrating for me because I spend so much time downloading, and you know, I always have to clear space on my PS4 for it. And I was like, dude, we couldn't. And this is with all due respect, we could not disagree more. I live in a major metropolis, and even still, like I could go. It's probably like less than 10 minutes for me to drive to an electronics boutique games, and still, you could not convince me. Maybe it's like I don't know if it's an internet connection thing, but you know, I got Ace Combat 7 on PS4. I don't know, it's like 30 gigs or something like that. It downloaded in under half an hour. It's, you know, given the choice, I'll do that. And then, yes, it does fill up your hard drive. So my solution for that is a little out there. It's a little radical. Games I've beaten and don't want to play again immediately, I delete from my hard drive because I know that it'll only take me a half hour or less to download them again. Like I love Bloodborne. I talked about it very recently in Isaac episodes. It might be my favorite Souls game. Remorselessly culled it from my hard drive when I needed space on the PS4. You know why? If I need it again, I'll just freaking delete it. Or I'll delete something else and reinstall it, I mean. Doesn't matter, I don't need it immediately. I don't know, there's never been a point in my life where I was like, oh, I want to play a video game. It's not installed, it's going to take 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Are you insane? I can't sustain a level of desire to do something for that long. It's a little bit of a straw man. And by a little bit, I mean, I'm saying it's a little bit of a straw man, so you agree with me. In reality, if you were free thinking there, you would recognize that's an enormous strong man. And I have just used a rhetorician's trick in order to make myself appear more sympathetic. Gamers absolutely owned in debate by Big Brain Chad. Anyway, where was I going with this? A rhetorician, of course, is a doctor who specifically practices on words, in case you were not familiar. So I'm loving the digital economy. The fact that you can get a refund is hilarious and also amazing to me. Like, the fact that you could buy something on Steam and then, you know, play it for 2 hours and be like, this is kind of garbage, or not. You don't even have to like give a real reason most of the time. You can just be like, it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be, and Steam will be like, okay, I hope you enjoyed your free 2 hours, and you know, here's your money back. It's insane. It's very consumer forward, I'll admit. Does it get abused? Probably, but I think that really I'm not a developer, so I don't have the data on my side on this one, but I feel like the cases of it being abused are probably relatively low. I'm not going to go so far as to say if you make a game that can be beaten in 2 hours, you deserve to have it refunded. What I will say is that I do think the kinds of people who would willfully interface with like a story game that's 2 hours long are probably less likely to be the kinds of people who are like, and I can get it for free and screw the developer, you know? I think they're more likely to be the kind of consumers who are willingly kind of paying for an experience that's, you know, a premium experience at a premium price, I suppose. Instead of like, check this out, guys, I'm min-maxed. I got this life-changing narrative game for free. Tends to not be how fandom works in my experience. Instead, it's like, oh my god, I loved you in this movie. Can I send you my money? This is the final floor for us, so I don't really want to buy a Steam sale. Seraphim's fine. We're kind of good to go here, but I don't know about this run moving forward. It's a little spooky for me. Let's try this, hope it's a stat upgrade. That'll work too. Anyway. Like, when I was a kid, things were, and I'll just tell you, they were worse. You know, it still blows my mind. And this is not meant to insult Game Informer, specifically. The reason I say specifically is because Game Informer is the only North American print gaming publication that still exists. All the other ones have gone out of business, except PC Gamer, but I think even PC Gamer was like, we're moving to digital only. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that necessarily. I don't want to libel or slander the good people at PC Gamer. But, you know, I saw they were like, hey, here's our cover story for this month. And on the cover, it says, like, the definitive Resident Evil 2 opinion. And I was like, dude, you guys have got to move faster than that. That game came out in 1997. No, I didn't. I mean, that's just a pithy one-liner. But what I mean is, you know, everybody, the games industry, it moves fast, man. People have already, you know, chewed up and spit out Resident Evil 2. They've already, we're on Apex Legends now. You're dealing with the fact that you got to send this to the printer and then, you know, ship it to newsstands across the nation, you know? It's wild to me that they still, I mean, I guess they're owned by GameStop, which gives them a much better kind of distribution outlook, but still. It's just kind of the nature of print media, which I love, by the way, but, you know, it's not how things kind of work now. I'm not telling them how to run their business, by the way. All good items, I just don't think we could live here. I'm genuinely not like, hey, dinosaurs, why don't you get a digital edition? You know, which they already have, I'm sure. It's more just like, it's a vestige of, you know, my youth, where if you wanted to buy a video game, first off, release dates were unknown. Until I was like 13. It was never like, hey, this new Mario game comes out on the, you know, 16th. And it's probably partly due to the fact that I was young, of course. But it was more like you'd walk into the game store and you'd be like, oh my god, a new Mario game came out. I'll take that. And then I had subscriptions to a couple of game magazines, you know, over the years. Nintendo Power, game... I'm freaking out. What was the one that had it had like graphical ratings for how much it impressed them, ranging from like meh to like the dude's hair was electrocuted. It's got like game. It's not Game Freak. Hold on. 1990s game magazines. I should know this. Game Pro. I think it was Game Pro ratings. Game Pro ratings faces. Absolutely was Game Pro. Anyway, and again, RIP to every single one of these publications, except Game Informer. But, whoa, where'd you come from? You know, you would kind of just, you'd be relying on one person's opinion in a magazine 3 weeks after the game came out, and then you would remember that, because, you know, or you'd look it up before you went to the store. On like one of your 100 minutes of online access for that month. I'm pretty sure Joe Rabicki from EGM gave this an 8.5 in the May 2003 edition of One Up magazine. Finally, we got a defensive item worth calling our own here. And then you buy it, and I'm not insulting Joe Rabicki, sometimes it would just be trash. And you know what it was? What happened when it's trash? You just ate it. And you went, all right, next, like 2 months from now at Christmas, I'll buy a different video game. Maybe this one will be good, but for now, I'm going back to playing, you know, Madden in November. The culture around it has changed. Part of that is definitely because I'm old enough to have the disposable income to afford to be part of the zeitgeist. Which, if I was 14, dude, I would have lost my mind playing all the new games that were coming out, no doubt. Good lord. I'm just saying, it's different now. We didn't have no Steam refunds when I was a kid. We walked to Toys R Us both ways in the snow. Told this story on myriad occasions. Hold on, I got an itchy eye. It's limiting my high-performance Isaac play. There's some nostalgia online about a Star Wars game for the Nintendo 64 called Shadows of the Empire. Shadows of the Empire is, I will say, a good game. However, I do not think it's a great game. I think it's a good game with some great levels. HK-47 level is a lot of fun. The space shooter level I really enjoyed. The first level on Hoth is one of, like, as far as I'm concerned, is one of those classic video game levels. Where when people are like, what's your favorite level in any video game ever? You know, sometimes people will be like, oh, the Medal of Honor, Frontline, or I don't know, on PC it might have been an Allied Assault. Yeah, the storming of, you know, the beach of Normandy was a sense of scale like we had not seen in a shooter up to that point. And, you know, different people feel differently about some of these levels, but, you know, the Silent Cartographer or Assault on the Control Room from Halo is probably another good example of a game that gets that kind of reverence. But I think the first level from Shadows of the Empire is way up there. And then, you know, in the second level, you're like, wait a minute, I'm playing as this Han Solo lookalike? Dun, 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 3, 4. Dun, 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 boobity, boobity. That's the, if you play level 3 in Shadows of the Empire, you know what's up. Anyway, my personal connection to the story. I don't think I can afford it, even though I really want it. And it was obviously Aya Belial that I wanted there, in case that's not abundantly clear. But, what I was going to say is I was like 13 years old. Or no, it was probably like 9. And I owned an N64. My parents were like, hey, you graduated, you know, 4th grade. We're going to buy you a video game. Which one do you want? And I had it narrowed down between 2. Super Mario 64. One of the all-time classic great games in history. And Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. Easy choice, right? Let me make it even easier. Super Mario 64 was like 60 bucks. That was 60 bucks 1998. Maybe even 1996 now that or 1997 now that I think about it. So what is that with inflation? I don't know. Inflation's weird because, like, you know, the cost of living has gone up, but wages have stagnated since the 70s. But let's not get into that. This is just a discussion of 2 N64 titles. We don't need to get into the economic issues surrounding it. But anyway, Super Mario 64 was like 60 bucks. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire was 110 Canadian dollars. That was back in the days where, you know, you could just set the price of your game whatever you wanted. It was like the gold rush on iOS where you could be like, my app's $500. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And I think that was a lesson for me for a couple of reasons. Because I said, get Shadows of the Empire. First off, you know, I kind of like Star Wars. I am 8 after all. And I just like to hit the hornet's nest sometimes. It's the call of the void that appeals to me. Where was I going with this? Anyway, I really think that something in my brain also went, it's more expensive, it must be better. And I learned a very valuable lesson that day. I played probably hundreds of hours of Shadows of the Empire. It wasn't necessarily a bad purchase, but it was the worst purchase. Got the crap scared out of me by that Boba Fett level. HK-47, gape. You know, it's not HK-47. Sorry, it's IG-88. That's a different Star Wars property. I've corrected myself. Can I be welcomed back into the fold of the nerds once again? Regardless, it's like a great source of embarrassment for me that I have played Super Mario 64 in my life. I rented it, you know, as a child, and it did blow my mind. Like, I specifically remember playing the first, whatever the first world is called. And again, it's embarrassing for me that I don't know this because I didn't buy Super Mario 64. But, you know, the second star in that world is like a race against that Koopa. And I was like, yo, bro, this game's got racing in it? This is advanced technology. Like, it blew my mind that simultaneously, while I was scaling this mountain, another creature in the code was also scaling the mountain. I was like, we're gonna be on Mars in like 6 months with this kind of technology. That is, if you believe they put a man on the moon. Just a little spooked about this run. Anyway, that's the end of that story. It's a great dereliction in my video game knowledge. You know, Despite owning an N64, I have, like, very little knowledge of Ocarina of Time because I washed out at Jabu Jabu's belly, which is incredibly embarrassing, but also very in character for me. Here's the thing. They went, hey, carry this princess through Jabu Jabu's belly. And I went, bro, that's no problem. I'm very strong. And then they went, carry the princess through Jabu Jabu's belly and also manage the water level. And I went, what the heck is this? What do you... I'm 10 years old. What do you expect of me? So I'm missing, like, a big chunk of the N64 oeuvre because I was playing too much Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey. I did play... I mean, I beat Banjo-Kazooie. I also didn't own GoldenEye, but I did own Perfect Dark. And I played a ton of that. Almost exclusively multiplayer, though, to be honest. Played a lot of Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart 64. But once I got a PlayStation, dude, that was like... That was my jam. All of the Crash Bandicoots, even though I'm terrible at them in the remastered edition. All the Gran Turismos really got me into racing games, which has been kind of... I wouldn't say a lifelong thing, but it's been... I've always liked racing games, but Gran Turismo really took me to the next level there. Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi. I don't know why I owned so many Star Wars games as a kid when they were, like, uniformly pretty bad for a long time. Masters of Terras Kasi is horrible. It's a fighting game. Again, like, it's just, you know, LucasArts made some interesting decisions in the 1990s. Not just related to the prequels. But Star Wars Masters of the Terras Kasi was a fighting game with all the Star Wars characters you know and love, right? Wrong. You're thinking of what a company with sound executive steering would have done in that situation. Instead, it was a fighting game with like 4 characters you knew, and then a bunch of characters that you'd only heard of if you were like a founding editor of Wikipedia. Like, who was the big bad in Star Wars Masters of the Terras Kasi? Darth Vader, right? It's Darth Vader. Wrong. Mara Jade. I still don't know anything about Mara Jade. Well, if you read the extended universe written by Timothy whatever his name is, blah, blah. Yeah, well, I didn't. Okay, I was 10 years old. I was busy reading 10-year-old books like The Old Man and the Sea. And, you know, Hop on Pop. It had, like, I still remember, you know, some of the characters. It had Princess Leia as the bounty hunter from Return of the Jedi. I remember that very well. It did have Luke Skywalker, but it also had, like, you know, Thok. You remember Thok. Or maybe he was Grok. I can't remember. He's the guard from Return of the Jedi at the Rancor pit. You know, where they drop Luke Skywalker in and he fights the Rancor in Jabba the Hutt's palace. You remember how everybody was like, bro, who's your favorite character from Return of the Jedi? And you and all of your friends in unison went, Thok, the bodyguard from Jabba the Hutt's palace who has no speaking lines and gets devoured by the Rancor. Yeah, he's in it, so that's pretty cool. Trying to remember the other... I think, Han Solo? Boba Fett was definitely in it. Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi. I'm so mad that they actually put, like, the umlauts. Oh my god, the Angry Video Game Nerd did a video on this recently. So I'm gonna seem like a real Johnny-come-lately. I didn't know that. Okay, Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, Boba Fett. There you go, okay? There's the pretty good cast. Following that, Arden Lin. No clue. Absolutely no idea. Stormtrooper. Huar. I'm saying it, I hope right. A Tusken Raider. You remember Huar, the Tusken Raider? Thok, a Gamorrean guard. Princess Leia, open parentheses, bikini. Mara Jade and Jodo Kast. Jodo Kast. Who I'm looking. Who the heck is Jodo Kast? It's Boba Fett palette swapped. Incredible. So that's Star Wars Masters of Terrascasi. It's not a good game, but I played like a staggering amount of it as a child. There are also experiences you would have as a child when you, well, at least back in the day. You know, this is Nintendo Helpline era. Not that I'm like a dinosaur, but, you know, I straddled that line between, like, calling the Nintendo Helpline and also just having access to, like, Cheat Code Central. So I remember I bought a game called Hammerlock Wrestling because I loved professional wrestling as a child. Can you blame me? I was 9. Hornet's Nest, by the way. I was playing it, and I was like, you know what? I've read the instruction manual front to back 20 times because there's nothing else to do. It's the 1990s. I'm playing Hammerlock Wrestling. I can't do anything. I can, like, punch. I can grapple. I can't do any moves. Every once in a while, like, a pseudo sort of cutscene plays, and it's like, press buttons, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. You just, like, would never really get the tutorialization of the game, and you would never reach your full potential as a result. It's just $60 down the drain. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. See you.